she'll come to bed.
So what?
I only know
Like, there's
about
different
the really
varieties of it, right?
She likes like
Crunchy things. or-
she's tried to. I asked her to let me watch a video with her, and
She's like, no.
no, she really didn't want me to. Cause she's like, you're not into it. Like you're it's not gonna soothe you and relax you. I'm like, no, you're probably not, because I could turn over right now and fall asleep. So, which is, I have no issues with that. But it was a woman walking through, a Southern woman walking through like Target or Walmart, and she goes to the lipstick aisle, and she names off the brands, not brands, the labels, the names of the lipsticks, and she just like talks in this voice where she names
Really?
names these lipsticks and just talks about these lipsticks and stuff, and like it soothes my wife.
I could
So-
see it. If there was like an Australian person
And when
doing
they do
that,
like that lip smacking.
I would totally listen to that, of just them talking, whoever it is.
I almost feel like it makes me anxious.
Oh yeah.
I'm just like, speak up.
Yeah.
Get on with it. What do we?
There's another one too where there's this guy who goes through like, it's called ASMR. What's in the bag? So like he goes through and like talks in this soft voice and like, and then it is just describing different things and pulls them out of his book bag, and like talks about these things and why he has these things. And apparently it's like 2 million viewers on YouTube, and just like, what did I miss? And, like, what part of my life did I not realize that this was a thing, and that I could have had, be making hundreds of $1,000s on YouTube by talking?
There's tons of stuff like that. One of the ones that gets me is the father and son that just cut stuff open. Have you seen this?
No. Do explain.
So I can't remember exactly what the name of their channel is.
Cut stuff open.
It's literally, I think, like cutting stuff in half. That's all they do. They're like, hey, today we're doing a bowling ball. Can't wait to see what happens. Just like with the saw.
I think I may have.
And then the kid's just like, oh, this is awesome. That's like it. And it's like, 10 million views.
Well,
Like, I can cut stuff in half. I can do that.
and I didn't even mean to get on this topic when we started talking about
you're
it.
good.
But I don't know what ASMR stands for. I'll
Good
just
question.
let the listeners tell us that we're idiots for not knowing. But I feel like during the Super Bowl, if you were watching those commercials, the Eat Like Andy, where he was like getting the Whopper or whatever out of the bag.
I must have. If it's
So basically, it was Andy Warhol. It must
Oh.
have been an old commercial, some weird thing that he just did. But it's Andy Warhol just sitting at a table by himself, and he brings over like this bag of Burger King, and then he just opens it, and all you hear is like the bag crinkling, and he takes out this Big Mac or whatever the hell they sell there, and it's in a box, and he takes it out of the box, and it's wrapped up. So he unwraps it, and he like takes his ketchup bottle, and he's like banging it, and he hasn't said anything up until this point, and then he's like, it won't come out, and then it finally comes out, and he like flattens out the paper, dips his burger in it, and takes a bite, and then that's the whole commercial, and it says "Eat Like Andy." But I think it was all about the sounds that were going on with it.
interesting.
So, do you know what I'm talking about?
I know, but since we're here to educate people, Google told me it's autonomous sensory meridian response.
Huh.
is
Okay, so
ASMR.
like I said, I still don't know what ASMR
Right, yeah,
stands
I don't
for.
know.
I just associate it with eating noises, which
Yeah.
I guess is part of it. Right.
It's not just eating though; it's any kind of soothing, relaxing conversations. That kind of starts sounding like this.
The complete opposite of you.
I hope. Hopefully, my wife listens to this episode. She's like, "Did you just try ASMR?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did."
I feel like my brain like can't sit still long enough for that. Like I'm just like, why? What's happening? Why are they doing that? Like, you know what I mean? Like the first time I saw it, I think that was the biggest problem. Is I was like, why are they whispering? Why are they whispering? Why are they whispering? What was happening? Why? Okay,
Turn it
I
up.
can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore.
There's a. Did you watch that? Have you seen that Vice? I think it's Vice on HBO that has. There's an ASMR lounge in New York. So there's people actually started a business where like it's like a guided tour. You can go through different rooms, and different rooms you have different experiences where like someone's like rubbing your head with a feather.
Oh,
and then there's
interesting.
another one where like you walk in and they're like whispering things in your ears, and it's humans whispering things in your ears, and you like pay for this experience.
That's messed up.
And this woman goes through. I think it's Vice. I'd have to do some research, but
That
it
sounds
was
like
in
something
it was in
Vice
New
would do.
York, and people made it a business. Like so now it's like a live action ASMR business, which is crazy.
That's fascinating, especially in a city like New York. You're wondering.
Yeah.
The first thing I think of is maybe because everything there is so loud and so crazy and in your face that it's a change of pace. It's a slow down. It's something to you talked about like before you go to bed, just to kind of put you at ease. Where I guess like I'm just you mentioned it. Like for me, I don't know if I know this is probably the wrong analogy, but it's just I'm sort of a leave it all in the field guy anyway. So like by the time my head hits the bed, like I'm just like lucky to get to the bed by the time I fall asleep. You know what I mean? Like I don't.
What's great is I hope our listeners have listened to the show that we did with you on Nano Brew. So for people that don't know, Jason has a podcast called Nano Brew. It's a great show.
Thank you.
But you're like the analogy king on that show. So it's funny as you say, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember.
Well, I'm the coach at heart.
He only speaks in analogy.
Well, I'm the coach at heart or teacher. You know, that's where I come from. This it's in my system. So the way you do that 101 is finding out what people like or do or understand, and then finding ways to connect an analogy to their world. And so I've had a lot of practice in it.
Yeah. Yeah, because you grew up playing sports too, right? You played baseball?
Jesus.
Yeah, big jockhead. Yeah, so I grew up...
baseball player sitting in front of...
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, so the deep dive into me is I was actually... I come from a family of place kickers, which is a weird thing, I know. So, like, my dad kicked in college. My brother went to Michigan as a kicker. And so I was first team All-State, all that stuff, rah-rah, right? But, like, I just love baseball more. So, you know, luckily I had the choice to choose which one I was going to play in college. And kicker is funny to me. It's just because I'm also analytical, because it's literally the most hated position on the universe. Like, not even your own team likes you.
I'm a Bears fan, so.
Yeah, so you get it.
Oh, man.
Like,
God.
oh, man, we can talk. It's very interested. Yeah, a lot of hot takes. But because I have opinions.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But it's what's... You know, I'm like, okay, am I going to go to college? I'm going to practice as much as anybody else. I'm going to do all the conditioning and everything. I'm going to get in the number of snaps I see in a season are going to be under 40 for the whole season. And the only time anyone's going to say my name out loud is if I miss. Like, that is the worst the worst position in sports, bar none, is kicker.
Well, funny that we're here talking about this, but did you see that thing that Goose Island did?
Yes, I did. It was hilarious.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and 0 people.
Yeah.
Out of, was 100?
I think they did cap it to 100, but yeah, that's hilarious. I read, so Good Beer Hunting had a huge article about it, and for people that don't know, go look up Good Beer Hunting. There's an article, and what's the kicker's name? I should know this.
Gosh, why am I forgetting his name right now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
People are going to...
If he would have made...
You remember the hatred's very real, but the name disappears.
So the kicker for the Chicago Bears to make it into the playoffs, to the next round in the playoffs, missed the field goal. Was a double doink, right? So it hit off the crossbar or one of the uprights and then the crossbar.
Yeah.
Parkey. Parkey. I knew it started with a P. Cody Parkey.
And didn't he have like 7 of them like this year or something crazy like that?
He had one game against the Lions. He had one game where he hit the crossbar or upright 4 times in one game, which is
hard to do, almost impossible.
Like, you might do it once in a season,
right?
And he did it 4 times in one game, and then I think, yeah. Anyways, go ahead, Tyler.
As you would expect, the internet blew up completely and just bashed this person and just said, "Oh, you're the worst. Like, anybody could have made that kick." So Goose Island, supporting a Chicago player, was like, okay, we'll put your money where your mouth is. Like, we're going to open this up, and we're going to go to, I believe it was 35-yard kick.
Yeah,
like, we're going to open this up to 100 people to see if you can make this kick. And they had a ton of people go out, and nobody made it.
And what I liked about it, too, is they put a chain link up in front, so that way it did simulate as well the fact that you're kicking with people, large grown men jumping over, in front of you as well. But yeah, what was also really dumb of them, I don't know if you there was
the one where the guy got
so the security's like in front of like the contact point, and one guy took one right in the nuts because someone slipped and kicked it straight sideways.
Yeah, kicked it straight to the left and just
of course they did.
Man.
But it was also the conditions when they had the 100 people kick. It was like freezing cold, and
no one's wearing cleats either.
But
whatever.
I mean, still,
I don't know. I think that they were.
Yeah,
that article got pretty detailed. That like these were.
They really wanted to prove them
pretty
wrong.
Intense armchair quarterbacks that came out to show up. But that's not why we're here to talk.
I was going to say,
it's all right.
This is one of our better tangents to start off.
No, I love it. So anyway, I'm a jock. That's where it comes from. But I played baseball instead. That's where it started on that.
Yeah.
And that was it. Then I played baseball in college.
What position?
I was a catcher. Because the beauty of catcher is you can basically think your way into being good at it. There's basically no other position in sports where you can just be dumb enough to throw your body in front of an object.
100-mile-per-hour
And
object.
if you're, because you know why? Because the talented people don't have to do that. So they're going to go play shortstop if they have good hands. They're going to play center field if they can run. They're going to pitch if they can throw. But, the jackass that wants to play Division I athletics that, I could play D2, D3. Well, I'm just going to literally, if I can just throw myself in front of the ball and I can think my way into the position, like you can.
All parents out there who are like, what can my kid become a Division I athlete at? Catcher.
You
made it happen.
You just take him in the backyard and smoke him with a baseball every day 1,000 times for about 7 straight years and until they're not afraid of it. Yeah.
Is that real life? Is that what happened?
100%. Yeah. My favorite thing catching lessons because it's always, it's ironically hilarious to me because I did baseball lessons for years and years and years. So the cliff note was, I worked in the baseball industry for 12 years. My parents and we owned a minor league baseball team, just sold it this last year. And so I worked baseball academy, giving lessons to kids that could barely walk all the way up to professional athletes. And so when it comes to any human being, we don't want to get hit by things. We all have flinch reflexes, right? I mean, anytime, it doesn't matter who you are. I guess the whole purpose of any found footage scary movie is because people go, oh, when the cabinet opens, you know what I mean, or something. So when you get people with equipment on and it's all forward facing, even if you have forward facing protection of a very hard molded plastic nature, everyone's first reaction when something's coming at them is to turn sideways where there is no protection. And so literally just getting kids down into a blocking stance and from 1 foot away pounding them with baseballs until they just get used to watching something hit them. And then once you get used to watching something hit you, there's something that changes about your I think confidence level in general, you know what I mean? That like an understanding of your body and how to use it. And anyway, I'm a big believer in athletics in general, like the teamwork ideas, the perseverance, all of these things that you learn along the way. And so that's why I dig being a catcher in general.
What university were you at?
University of Michigan.
You went to University of Michigan?
Mm-hmm.
Catch there?
Yep.
Very cool. Congrats, man.
Yeah, thank you.
I
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
You caught there?
Catched,
yeah, fair enough. Easy.
Caught.
What years were that?
So the fall of '99 all the way up to 2003. I took an extra semester as a teacher, but yeah. So the baseball seasons of 2000, 2003. So my freshman year roommate still pitching for the Dodgers. Shout out Rich Hill. So he's
awesome.
38 and still making 13 mil, and he's doing all right for himself.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Did you go?
That's my claim to fame, is I can name drop a couple people.
Did you go for any professional ball yourself?
Yeah, I played for like a heartbeat. So I just happened to hit a stretch, and like you people look at me like they're always surprised I'm a catcher, and that's part of the point. But the people that I just happened to be with. So if anyone that's listening knows baseball at all, so David Parrish was there when I first came, and he's Lance Parrish's son, who played for the Tigers, World Series champion, Major League All-Star. He was a first-round draft pick. So I sat behind for him for a year, thinking that okay, my sophomore year is going to be my next year. Then they brought in more people in front of me so literally out of like 5 or 6 catchers I played with, like 3 of them made it to the big leagues. So I sparingly stole my at-bats by like, going Nancy Kerrigan style in practice and, it's only half joking. Like, yeah.
What did that do to you? Like mentally, like did that create some sort of a chip on your shoulder or anything?
It's a great question, man. Yeah. I mean, full competition mode. It's funny. Sometimes it's almost hard after you're at that level of competition to come out into a world that doesn't understand that, and that like even like a mediocre thumb war, people are like, "You're competitive." I'm like, "You have no idea what competitive even means." You know what I mean? So competitive means like after practice, people rush to the clubhouse and put $100 bill down and say, whoever can beat me in Mario Kart, let's go. Like that's the kind of like literally like every second of every day, like everything's a competition. So it was the same thing in practice, that when you're behind people that are very obviously top 1% talents in the world at what they do, and you're not, and you're scrapping it together based on basically like your brain power and just your will to stick around, you find ways to take every advantage. I don't care if it's a drill. Like I'm going to figure out how to time the sprints, so I'm leaving half a second early, so that because I can't, I'm cheating. I'm gonna do whatever I can, and my goal is for the people around me to go like, hey man, back down, because that's what the talented people do, because they're in the lineup no matter what. So like, how do I embarrass them? That's the only way I'm getting in the lineup, is that I can't just beat them in a sprint. I can just beat them at a drill. Like I have to literally be twice as good as they are. So the coach puts me in just as a way to push the guy behind me. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, Chip is the I don't know if Chip, but just basically it was the perfect training for the fact of it's relentless. The relentless nature of 365 days a year. Today's the day you notice me. Today's the day you notice me, every single day, and just never giving it up.
When that's going to do one of two things, right? It's either going to crush your confidence, right? Like consistently having these three other people always be in front of you, or it's going to completely boost it, right? It's like, shit, I'm holding my own with these three other people that are all now playing in the majors. Like, right? It could go one of two ways, and I think it all goes down to like mindset and how you go into it. And for me, it sounds like you're saying, yeah, I knew I had to work my way there, but I deserved to be there, right? And I knew how to work a little bit smarter than these people that may have had some sort of advantage, whatever that was.
Yeah, I had to figure it out. I think that it's necessity is the mother of invention, and the invention is that I can't not be confident. If I wasn't confident, then I would have gotten cut. So. My roommate my senior year got cut. Like that, like my roommate, like we came in the same class. It's sort of there's a little bit of dark underbelly in college athletics. Like people don't talk about stuff like that. Like
Scholarships lost.
Yeah, it's a 1-year scholarship. They don't owe you anything.
Yep.
You get it, every scholarship's a 1-year scholarship.
It's like a renewed thing. Like you have to earn it
every
the next year.
Every scholarship.
Every year you get to like almost renegotiate. Kind of
Yeah.
the coach comes to you and says like, "This is what I want to pay you next year," and you kind of just say, okay, and hopefully you prove yourself.
You're a junior, and you're like, yeah, you're not going to play anymore, because once you get to be a sophomore, junior, the writing's on the wall, too. If you're playing at Alabama, and you're like 4th-string cornerback, and you're on a scholarship, and they can add one more kid to the recruiting class, they're going to say, we're not renewing your scholarship. They're going to give it to somebody else. So the whole it's a fallacy, with the whole, like, I could go on for this forever.
No,
like
I think that this is super
athletic.
interesting because I've like I had some like I was friends with a lot of people that were on the women's Purdue soccer team, right? So
on.
I like got to see through their eyes like what that meant to be a student athlete, and it takes a lot. So when you hear those arguments about like why they actually should be getting paid and things like that, like that brings up this whole other thing, which is like, yeah, you gave up a lot to go to that school to go play. And I don't think that a lot of people know that this thing is contingent upon a bunch of other factors outside of your own performance.
Well, yeah, I mean, talk about injuries. You have
injuries, yeah.
Yeah, you tear your ACL, MCL, blow out your knee, and then you're done, and the doctors tell you you're done. Like, you lose your scholarship. Well, sometimes they'll.
Yeah, the whole invention of the phrase student athlete was by a lawyer for the NCAA in order to avoid giving insurance money to a guy that got paralyzed in football. That's a real story. Mm-hmm. Like they came up with that so that way they could say like, no, we have students athletes. So that way that was the legal because someone took a pitch to the right and came in and got speared and couldn't walk anymore.
There's a huge documentary.
It is. That's on Netflix.
Netflix.
I can't remember the name of it.
I can't either. It's brilliant.
Yeah. So they go through that. They go through that. That's where I learned that actually. Yeah. This is years later. I didn't even know that. Because nowadays you're fed this whole like, oh, student athlete, you're getting education. This is a hot button topic.
Well, that dude from the Seahawks, Richard Sherman. Yeah, it's like very vocal about all of this,
right?
And like really openly talking about his experience as a student athlete. Which again, another thing to go Google is like go watch his videos. Have you seen him him talking about it?
I know who he is.
It's pretty nuts.
So anyway, to answer your question more thoroughly is like, yeah, I had to. Honestly, I think that experience, like I'm almost sad for people that they can't be around that kind of experience, around people that are so confident in what they do, you can't convince them that they're bad. Like legitimately, buddies of mine that made the major leagues, they could go 0 for 40 with 40 strikeouts and be booed every night, 30 days in a row, and they'll walk on the field and be like, why am I not in the lineup? I'm way better than that guy. Like, you can't convince them. There's no convincing them. And a lot of times I think people see athletes that make it to the high level, that the ones that get the microphone in their face and that they think they're arrogant. Like, even the guys that are keeping it under wraps, they all feel the same way because you can't not to make it to that level. So, like, you know, for me, you know, it's chicken and egg, like what came first. Like, I think the reason I survived is because even still now, I think I'm better than they are. Like, I think I could have made it. Like, if I had gotten the shot and they didn't, like, I probably think I could have squeaked it out. Like, once in a while now, 15, 20 years later, in the back of my mind, I'm going like, yeah, you were actually kind of undersized. I'm like, nah, fuck that. You know, like, I would have, if I would have had my shot, you know, but no, you have, and so when you, I mean, 100%. I mean, it's probably an experience that I probably don't give enough credit to, in terms of having 4 straight years of always battling from the bottom, like, there was never a time where I ever felt like I was coming in with any room for error. You know what I mean? When everyone's out, that's why part of the reason, like, I was real straight edge, like, through college, like, I didn't drink at all, like, nothing like that, because those dudes would go out and get trashed. Like, I was hoping they would. I'm buying their beer. Like, I want you to show up wasted in practice, because that's the only shot I got. Like, I'm trying to get every advantage I can.
Think this is making sense now why people are buying me beers in college.
Yeah, right? You get it. Yeah.
So I think that this is a perfect point to transition into
one more baseball question.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Love it.
You mentioned you and your parents owned a minor league baseball team?
Yes.
Dude, give me the 2 minutes on that.
Yeah, sure. Traverse City Beach Bums. So
that hat makes sense.
Yeah,
show it to the
my
camera.
hat.
Yeah, they can see
Traverse
it.
City, Traverse City Beach Bums. Traverse City, Michigan is the area I grew up in. I went to Glen Lake High School, which is kind of
Shout out to Glen Lake.
Traverse City's gorgeous.
It's
Cherryland and
awesome. Yeah, it's so short version. When I was in college, they farm out Division I athletes, college baseball players, you know, to summer league teams. Like, you're almost required to go to summer league. And so it's become this huge business because the teams get you and they don't have to pay you. So you're the unpaid talent on the field, and they're for-profit businesses. And the players go because it does benefit them.
What the hell? Really?
It's 100%. So they're literally, they look and act no different than minor league baseball stadiums with all the promotions. In fact, it's more heavily geared towards that because they don't have any governing body telling them that, for example, like, promotions have to get off the field in 90 seconds. Like, I played for the Wisconsin Woodchucks in like 2000 or
These names are hilarious.
Yeah,
they get better.
like 2001. And literally, we would sit and wait for 3 or 4 minutes because people were on the mound throwing frisbees on home plate, or, you know, the mascots running around. And
it's like all the Sports Center clips that they have of, like, the awesome things that people are doing in promo times. It's like, that's
and because there's no restrictions at the summer collegiate level, and so it's kind of ridiculous what they put these kids through. Like, you show up. So I coached at this level for a while too, and so literally I would show up June 1st. The kids would come in June 2nd. Our first game's June 3rd. I'm still meeting them. Like, I'm filling out a lineup of people that I've literally never met yet, and play every single day for like 50 straight days, and then they go home. Like, maybe 3 days off. And these are college kids that are used to 3 or 4 days a week, and now they're playing 6-7 days a week. And anyway, that's a little longer story. But the point is, my parents saw the Wisconsin Woodchucks, and for the first time saw promotions like having a helicopter drop pennies and people scramble, or, you know, burying a diamond ring in the infield and letting people try to find it, you know, all kinds
That's
of
awesome, by the way.
And so, coming from Traverse City, back then there wasn't a lot of nighttime entertainment, very family oriented, very touristy, but nothing to do at night really. And so we were like, we got to do this. We got to do this thing in Traverse City. I come from the hotel industry. I grew up in the hotel. My parents were the hardest working people I know. Like, didn't go to college, literal bed sheets out the window, eloped when they were 17 and 18, you know, had to wait until they're both 18 to get married, had my brother almost right away. You know what I mean? Like small town hotel, motel management, like saving their pennies, scrapping, buying one, selling it, buying another. So I lived in hotels until I was 6 or 7, lived in a house for a minute, then went right back into the hotels again. So
That's cool.
Oh yeah, all of like the hospitality. You know, I took it for granted for a long time, like the professionalism of seeing my mom. You know, because literally, like, you walk through our front. We didn't have a front door. The front door is the front desk, and then you go to the front door. So we lived, you know. So my parents going from like, you got to pick up your room, to like, hey, how's it going? Welcome. You know, like the professionalism of being able to change because it's not about you anymore. Like she's pissed off at me, her kid like throwing a fit in the back, but now it's about the guests. And I think I took that for granted for a very long time, that's innate, that I've witnessed that, you know? And so when I get frustrated sometimes when I get staff and they don't know how to do that, they take their bad day behind the bar with them, you know, like I get upset, like why can't, you know, and I think it was literally just probably like in the last year that clicked, that it just is more natural for me because I witnessed it for so long. Yep. So anyway, the point of the story was my parents were retired by the time I went to high school. They did the small town buy, sell, and then finally like hit it big kind of thing in the mid 90s. It's a longer story, but essentially rags to riches sort of deal. They're retired. They're following me. And we decided, like I tried to teach for a minute, you know, and I decided like not for me. Yeah. So that's what my degree is in, English and math. So I taught that for a minute. And my parents were like, how about we just start a minor league baseball team? I'm like, hell yeah, get me out of teaching. I don't want to deal with these kids anymore. It's been a year and I'm done. So that's how it started. It took us a couple years to build a stadium, and we had a good run, 12 years. Wow. Yeah, 2006, 2018. So it's literally the best industry. I love it so much. And if anyone is listening to this, and if you're like wanting to get an internship, like this is what you do. You go into minor league baseball because you learn every facet of a business from top to bottom. You learn everything from parking to promotions to tickets to concessions to sales and marketing to event-based management. Like it's both the difficulty in the business model, and it's the benefit, because you're so multifaceted. It does stretch you very thin, but at the same time, you learn a little bit about everything.
That's crazy. Well, it sounds like, and we were getting ready to make this transition into business, but it sounds like you are the perfect storm, you know, to be a business owner, okay. Right? You've got these entrepreneurial parents who kind of had that ingrained into you, right? Of like, this is what it takes to operate a business. And then you've got this ultra competitiveness from athletics, and you put those two things together, and it's no surprise that, you know, you're going to run a successful business. Wow. Right. And I think that your approach.
Did you know that Haley was an intern for the Gateway Grizzlies?
Were you really? Oh my gosh.
Do you know who that is?
Yeah. I've played at that stadium. I coached at that stadium for 10 years. Yeah, I've been there a lot. Here's a funny story about the Gateway Grizzlies. The reason they were so awesome and kicked everyone's ass was because the visiting hotel was the Casino Queen Riverboat Casino. So literally all the players would show up broke and hungover because they got free beer all night, wasting their paychecks, and then it would be 100 degrees in the fucking St. Louis humidity heat, and we get the shit kicked out of us. Yeah. What years were you there?
I was there, gosh, it was 2 or 3 summers ago. So I remember when, the Traverse City, Beach Bums came. I was on the marketing team, so I did like everything that was on the billboard.
So Steve Gomerick is one of like my favorite people ever.
Wait, are you serious? Yeah, Steve.
So Steve Gomerick, shout out Steve, if you're listening, I'm sure you are.
I'm going to send it to him now.
Yeah, so so independent baseball is what it is. So the Frontier League, and one of the reasons, that's where the Traverse City Beach Bums were, and one of the reasons it's so great is that it's still professional. They're still trying to, you know, have the pace of play standards of minor league baseball, but it doesn't have those governing bodies, so you can take more liberties. And I invoke the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are like the pinnacle of marketing. They 100%. Like
that's where she learned it, huh?
Yeah, exactly. That's where I learned how to do Illustrator. So
you know the like the big fat claim thing, like baseball's best burger was like they're the first ones to do. So they partnered. They partnered with Krispy Kreme, and so they had. I have another good story about this, but they partnered with Krispy Kreme, so they made baseball's best burger, and they had this series every year where they would do baseball's best. So big fat claim, everyone's got to taste it, that kind of thing. So you got Krispy Kreme on board. It's like I don't know if it's a pound burger, but and then like tons of bacon, tons of cheese. With Krispy Kreme donuts as buns.
Yeah, and we came out with a new one my year. It was like a breakfast burger, so you had egg and hash brown and everything on it. Yeah, you actually. I didn't have it until my last.
Free, maybe.
Yeah, like I didn't have it until my last day working there, and I thought I was gonna die. Like it was. Oh my gosh! It was so greasy.
They also had Man vs. Food came because of the what was it? Nachos. It was the Philly steak nachos.
It was like baseball's best nachos, I think, as well.
Yeah.
But it's amazing because that organization taught me how, like things just come together. Like you just have to work. There's like 15 people making all of this happen, and you just have to come together. And yeah, Gateway Grizzlies. Yep. Yeah, we're great. Watching a video right now. Fabian threw it on. So look it up. There's a couple good videos that you might see someone familiar in.
You load up the burger. Oh yeah. Oh no. So they cut the donut in half.
Yes. And then they would fry the donut as well.
Yeah. Look at that.
Yeah, it's really good. And then they put it in wrap. Yeah. No, it's yeah, you might see someone eating one of those burgers on a video at some point, but I'll let you guys continue talking about Books and Brews because we could talk about this forever.
No, I would love to.
We haven't even said the name Books and Brews until just now. Thank you, Haley. That was great.
I care about that.
That was great.
I love. Yeah, no, literally, minor league baseball. The beauty of minor league baseball that I love so much is the fact that now they've done such a great job branding minor league baseball that people expect wacky things, so there's literally no chance of negative publicity on doing weird shit. So you can literally sit around a desk, open the paper, and do anything that riffs off of a headline in order to try to snag additional easy low-hanging fruit publicity, and no one's ever gonna like sweat you for it because they expect it. And that's why it's like a marketer's dream, like the whole level.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Before we hop into Books and Brews, what was the company that your parents, is it known like what your parents kind of grew and built and
the hotels and stuff?
Yeah, like what was the final product?
Hilton?
Still
Hilton.
Yeah, Grand Beach Resort Hotel, which is still there, and the Sugar Beach Resort Hotel, which is they're still both there.
Very cool.
All of their smaller ones, I think, are probably all like built over by now. The Heritage Inn, the Colonial Inn.
Is that all in Traverse?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
My brother for a while, he went into the hotel industry and then he sold his hotel. So he was like I want to say like non-compete for a minute, and then he went back in. Now he owns the Fox House and the Beach House. And then also he just built a new hotel called the Baywatch because he's straight 80s all the way. And love him to death. Shout out
Did you say Sugarloaf or no?
No, Sugarloaf is a ski resort. I grew up like almost like right next to it. Do you know it?
I played. I stayed there a couple of summers in a row.
It's been shut down for a while.
Yeah, I played a couple of soccer tournaments there back when I was a kid.
It's very sad. Like literally,
we would climb up in the summertime, climb all the way up the little mountain.
That's like legitimately my backyard. I mean, in a country backyard.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I mean?
crazy.
Like a few miles away. So snowboarding was my winter sport. Like I'd keep my snowboard in the back of my truck and just literally go from. That's the beauty of not having that has killed winters for me, you know, but being able to go to the hill with a pass, and if it take a couple runs, if not, go home, get the pass. Not a big deal. I didn't have to go through anything, just like hop on. So yeah, that ruined snowboarding for me because now like living in Indy or wherever, it's just a whole day. You got to go there. Everyone, there's 1,000 people there. But I love Sugarloaf.
That's crazy. We can get
Yeah, sorry.
We're good.
I'll keep going forever.
No worries.
This is what it's all about. I've learned so much already.
Yeah, but if I can remember 5 minutes ago.
Your long question that I interrupted?
I think I was making more of a statement.
Yeah, exactly. So I interrupted that on purpose.
About how, you were this perfect storm of competitiveness and entrepreneurial spirit just from seeing your parents, and how that transitions into business. And Jared and I, off mic, have had several conversations about just how unique what you've been able to create here at Books and Brews has been, because I think, when you talk about breweries and you talk about uniqueness and what makes them stand out and what makes it different, it always comes down to the beer, which is great. But when it comes to something that is uniquely Indianapolis, like what was born and bred here, like where did it start? And what makes it the most unique, it's what you've been able to do.
Oh, thanks, man. It's really cool.
And it's a completely different model than I've got a tap room somewhere else.
Right.
So let's get into the story of Books and Brews. Why is it called Books and Brews? Like, when did this all start? How did it even start? Because you were on the path to be an athlete, and then presumably maybe take over in the footsteps of your parents, and then somehow there was a transition. So
I think you hinted at it when you said, these are the things that gives me hives, when you're like, this is what it always comes down to is beer. as a marketer and promoter and entrepreneur, when I hear someone say this is what always comes down to is beer, that means there's opportunity because everyone's doing the same thing. And when other people zig, like the zag is like open territory. And when you're first to market, you're always going to have that opportunity. Now, that's the head part. There's lots. I could go on forever about the heart part about Books and Brews, you know what I mean? But at the end of the story, like I literally had this conversation today where I'm a huge believer in mission statement, and I think it's more and more relevant, like the word mission. Mission statement, I think, has been such a afterthought by a lot of entrepreneurs or business owners that I think they overlook the word mission and they go to statement. Like it's more of a statement than a mission. Yeah. And that it's not like, I think people blame millennials, but I think it's a sign of our times, not a sign of the next generation, that people need a reason. They need a why, not a what. You know, and my biggest beef with the beer industry from the outside looking in when I was a home brewer and just whatever, like, you know, kicking up chocolate stout at my house and be like, what's the brewery industry about? You Google brewery mission statement, you're going to find one, and it is make world-class beer. Like, that's it. Yeah. And you know what that is? It's literally just you loaded a template that says make product good, you know, like make world's best burger. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, here's the thing is like, that's cool if you're really passionate about that. Like some people are extremely culinary. They want to have integrity in their food. They want to have whatever it is, but it only gets you so far if there's no why. Like why do you want to do that? Well, to make money. That's okay. That's an okay why, you know, but that only takes you to the point where you make money, and then the why ends, and then your motivation's over. And so you have to start with that. Like it's such a paramount foundation because it's every business starts from the top down. Mm-hmm. And as soon as, you know, day one, when you walk in and you try to tell people this is what we're about, you know, if there isn't a heart to it, like the head is obvious. Your paycheck needs to clear. Like we get it, you know, everyone understands the product needs to sell. So it needs to be good. Shouldn't need to be stated in a mission. We need a why. And so that was the big thing for me. Was the beauty of minor league baseball is that they figured that out. They figured out, like, we don't need baseball to be they looked around and said, you know what, this has nothing to do with what's happening on the field. Holy shit, you know, people aren't even here for that. The exit surveys show you in minor league baseball that the vast majority of the fans don't know who the other team was. They can't name
so true.
They can't name a player. They don't even know what league they're in. Like they don't even know. I don't know the exit surveys specific to the Indianapolis Indians here in town. Shout out, one of the cleanest, most beautiful ballparks I've been to.
That place.
Oh, yeah. But I guarantee that if you looked at their exit surveys, you would see that most of the people that leave there think that they're an affiliate of the Indians and not the Pirates because of their name. And that's an eye-opening thing, is like, okay, then why are people coming? And the beauty of minor league baseball is the fact that no one controls your experience. There's no hostess. There's no assigned seats, you know, and you start to look at that. You start to exchange that over into the restaurant industry, and you're like, holy shit, what used to be a pub, a public house, a place of interaction and conversation and new acquaintances, is now just about old acquaintances, because we've shut down the ability to even meet others, because the hostess, we've assembly lined it, because the whole idea of the restaurant is to keep the lanes clear, because the service can be 1% faster, which can turn tables 2% faster, which can show the shareholders that they have 3% more profit. And if you put people in the way, it slows down the service. But guess what it also does? It makes them talk. And they have to touch each other and they say, excuse me, I'm coming through. Even if something as simple as that, we've eliminated by the way of doing math in the restaurant. And that's okay, you know, because that's what the big money will always chase. And that's when I look at, because business model, the other thing I think people screw up is they don't look at long term, and they need to insulate themselves in a mission and a method that isn't going to be bought by Shark Tank. You know, Shark Tank's not going to buy Books and Brews. You know why? Because they're not worried about people talking to each other. They don't give a shit, like, if someone has their first date here, or if people get married at our bar where they met for the first time. That means nothing to them. You know what I'm saying?
Does that happen?
100%. Yeah. Our old trivia host got married at the bar where she met her now husband. That's awesome. Yeah. We've had our old COO married someone she met here. We've had, multiple, probably 10 couples at least that I know of that had their first date and/or met here. Wow. That's just at the mothership, let alone other locations that I don't have good enough barometer for. And part of it is like, so I looked and I saw here, baseball has saved the sport by making no one care, because no one cares about the game, but they've saved the sport because of that. So part of this whole Books and Brews thing is saving the bookstore because no one here cares. There's no one here reading. I always laugh when people like Books and Brews. Do I have to read? I'm like, dude, do you have to read at the library, bro? Like they're gonna like force you, like, hey, you're not reading over there. Open the book.
Get out.
It's always funny to me, but no, it's not the point. The point of Books and Brews, number one, it serves. Someone once told me, and I'm mixing this all together, and people with ADD like myself will follow me. So I'm talking to you specifically.
And your fans who listen to your show are blackout drunk by now because
100%.
You have not stopped talking about baseball.
Yes. So if you listen to our show, you know that if I mention baseball, you have to drink at home. Yeah, that's like my whole staff's drinking game in general. Is that if I ever say baseball, I look around and everyone's like picking up a glass. But it's important to me because it's so transcendent and it does something that nothing else does. Like if you go to a football game. Like, I guarantee there's people that have season tickets to Lucas Oil that have not seen the whole stadium. They go from the gate to their seat, they watch the game, they go home. There are maybe, I would guess, less than 5% of people that go to an Indians game that don't walk the entire concourse, the entire thing, all the way around. I don't care if you've been there one time, you're going to go see everything because that's just how they've branded it, that we don't control you. It's about you. It's not about us. And what happens is people stop noticing each other. You know, like if you're at a football game, like I remember the one year I had season tickets for the Colts, like someone in my row wanted to yell at me for not standing up and yelling loud enough. Like there's nobody doing that. Like no one's control. There's no hostess. There's no server. You don't have to even go to your seat. And you know what happens then is you have these walks of life, these vast, wide ranges of demographics, and they don't even notice each other. If there's a rowdy kid in your row at a basketball game, you notice. You don't notice that at a ball game. You know, in restaurants that have a certain way about them that accidentally, without even trying, make people's attire part of the atmosphere. And it happens whether you're in a dive bar or a dress, or like a business casual, which is always like the funny term these days. Like, you walk in and if you're underdressed, you feel out of place. And then everyone else there feels weird because they've inadvertently made your attire part of their atmosphere. And how fucked up is that? To make people feel weird based on the clothes you're wearing. And then it's no different in a dive bar. You walk in there in a 3-piece suit. Like everyone's going to feel weird about it. And it's not intentional. But because of the control of the experience, that's the byproduct. So part of what a bookstore does is that no one feels the need to even sit down if they don't want to. Who sits down in a bookstore? Not very many people. You know, so the books on the wall also give people license to move, to look around, to look at things, to engage others. Same thing with the board games. You know, before you know it, people are talking to it. So that's the whole basis of it is every day we try to reverse engineer. How do we get strangers to engage? How do we get strangers to get depth of experience? I think that if you talk about the origin of Books and Brews, like it starts with a feeling and we reverse engineer from there. Like I'm a nerd. I love books. You know, I love beer. You know, I'm a fan of local food. The whole thing, like these are commodities. These are paintbrushes to the ultimate masterpiece of the painting, if you want to say. But it's not even like a painting. Painting's just one medium. You know what I mean? Like if a painter paints a painting, it's because they can paint and they can't play guitar. If they could play guitar, maybe they would have done the same thing. It's the expression. The expression is what they're going for. It's not the painting. People might buy the painting, you know what I mean? But then that painting might mean a good one would mean 100 different things to 100 different people. And so for me, that's all where it comes from, is sort of a performance art piece, so to speak, to whether, and you can pick, you know, what you want the meaning to be, whether it's the startup business, whether it's the entrepreneur, whether it's, you know, our mission statement is a place for people without a place where all are accepted, appreciated, and encouraged to be themselves. And so it's a personal mission for me because I grew up with all of my interests in English and math and, geekdom, if you will, in the 80s when it was Revenge of the Nerds, man. It was nerd or jock. That's it. It's your choice. You know what I mean? That's all there is. But I played baseball. I played football. Like I wasn't like my activities were in athletics. My interests were in English and math and these things. So I felt like the man on an island without a country, however you want to phrase it. So all of that manifested itself. You know what I mean? So like it's one of those things where I think that natural authenticity today, whether it's the people that want to follow you into your mission, it has to come from that place where the business is more of a manifestation of myself than it is a conscientious strategic plan to make money. You know what I'm saying?
And what's interesting is the word beer isn't even in that mission statement, right? Which is kind of hilarious.
Purpose.
Yeah.
On purpose. You know the Cheers theme song?
Yeah, place for people to their name or some shit.
Yeah, right? Yeah, you get it, yeah.
Choose mumble.
Yeah, where everybody knows your name, right?
Yeah.
Beer's not in that song. They never say beer in that song. Everybody knows that name, and they associate it with the bar and the show Cheers. They don't mention beer. There's nothing in there that's like, we want to go and get a beer, and everyone knows it. No, it's not even about that show. That show isn't about beer. You know what I'm saying? But it is the paintbrush, if you want to say, to the expression of it. So
what was the moment that the first conception of this kind of came to you? Like, was there a moment where you're like, ooh, Books and Brews, this could work, and then it kind of, or did it just sort of slowly happen?
Yeah, it's a good question. It slowly happened because it was much more organic in terms of, so English major, wife's an English major. Shout out Sarah. Way more
Did you
smarter than me.
meet her at Michigan?
No, I met her in middle school.
Oh, okay.
So
well,
yeah,
you started early. Huh?
Yes, yeah. So we dated, and she was a gymnast. She went to school at Central Michigan. I went to school at Michigan, and honestly, people talk about like long distance relationships, but if you've ever been an athlete, like you get three choices. You get school, athletics, social life. You got to pick two, and
two out of three
exactly. And so, people are like, oh, how'd you stay together? Like, almost, like, honestly, like, the reason it happened was because we were both athletes at different colleges. Like, we were both focused on our sport, and we were both focused on schoolwork, and that laid a better foundation for us to be apart than together, because together it would have been like, we don't have time. Like, something would have... Anyway, sorry. It's a whole nother subject, but... as English majors, as you do, you dream about the little cute bookshop, right? Well, bookshops are dead. And, books are going to be antiques. Like, they aren't yet, but they will be someday. It might not be for 40, 50, 60 years, but they're going to be. But the themes don't die. They're timeless. Like, people will always know Shakespeare, right? They will always even now know Game of Thrones. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how new it is and how old it is. Like, the beauty of the written word is that it is timeless and it does not go away. And people identify it maybe even more than music, because just because of the nature of reading and putting yourself mentally into a certain place. Listen, and I'm not like, music is the same way. Like, we listen to music, we go back in time to where we heard it or stuff like that. But there's something about books that put us in places that we don't forget, and the feelings associated with that. So that plays a role in it. But we'd always love to open our own little cute bookstore, but you just can't. Like, you can't. Even the people who are avid readers eventually go, I don't have any place to put these books. I'm going to buy an e-reader. They just do. Like, very begrudgingly. Like, they might put it off for like 5 years, but eventually they're going to be reading on their iPhone or whatever. So shelf that, obviously. That was always one of those like, when we retired someday, and then, that didn't happen. So my buddy Dennis, shout out Dennis. He's the general manager of Vine and Table. Go see him. Great dude. We became quick friends around town. He was the first one. Well, we moved to Indianapolis probably like, 10 years ago ish, probably longer ago than that even. And
what brought you here?
My wife's job. So she went to law school at IU, and she got a 2-year clerkship for a federal judge here in town. And so that was going to be 2 years. And she had this like mega law firm job. She's very smart. Very smarter than me. And so
very smarter.
And yes. And so that was the plan. Like, head on to Chicago. Chicago's a little intimidating for the small town kid in me. So I pulled back on that a little bit. And the judge offered her a career position, which is pretty rare. And so we jumped on it. Like Indy's just like the great city for the small, because you get all the big city amenities. You know, you don't have to deal with like the real big city, like traffic, like some of the issues that are like really intimidating in the big cities. So that's how we ended up here, and loved it, settled down, really dig it. And that was working in baseball, traveling a lot. She had her career, I had mine. Like we've always been super awesome and supportive, you know, together and separate like that. And that was around the time, like finally, like we waited until about 30 to have kids. And that was when we had my first daughter, Callie. And it was just, you know, like I'm not a overly religious man, probably not at all. But like I felt like a call to like stay at home with her. You know what I mean? Like I just felt like that was the thing at my time that I should do. And I regretted it immediately. But no, I mean, like looking back on it, you know, like you talked about the competitive nature of learning to scrap and claw against people that are obviously more talented than you, and the lessons that taught me, like being a stay-at-home dad, probably like equally the same. Like 2 years doing that was the most eye-opening, perspective-building, I won't say time of my life, because I have like probably like a half dozen of those that I really cherish, but it's definitely one of them. And it makes me appreciate people that do it. It makes me work harder, because I know, you know, if Books and Brews ever goes down, I got to go back to that, and I don't want that to happen. No, but all joking aside, so during that time, I got into home brewing, and Dennis, because I skipped over that, like he was like, hey, there's a place out in New York called Spotty Dog Books and Ale. Have you heard of this? And I was like, nah. It's like, so it was a bookstore, and then over time they added a bar, and it's in this historic, it's really cool, Hudson, New York, historic downtown, like the old kind of fire station with the tin roof sort of thing. And I started kind of like cyber stalking them and contacting the owner and asking these questions about their business model and that kind of thing. And you know, like most people, I think in the restaurant / brewery industry, very forthcoming and just want others to be successful. So she gave me a lot of great info, and I kind of took that and made it my own. So like then, so it went from bookstore to bookstore bar, and then eventually like I was home brewing as a stay-at-home dad. And the one I think probably one of the biggest misconceptions of starting a business, and even for me, because my parents, again, hotel industry, right? We own the hotels. So you own the land. Ballpark owned the land, owned the stadium. All of a sudden, now I'm moving into an industry where I'm going to lease spaces. And the number one, you're nodding your head, you probably know where I'm going with this already. like the number one thing that was super naive to me was like, I have the money to open a business. Hello, landlord, you have an open space. And they're like, what are you doing? No, thanks. And I was like, wait, what? Like, you have an open space. I have money. Why not? And there's like, you're a startup. And no.
It's like, shut up and take my money.
It right? is. So I literally got turned down. The very first place I ever looked at is where Chili Water just opened at 42nd and Boulevard. So shout out them. Great job. But like literally almost every spot I looked for in the first like 12 months are now breweries. And they all told me to like beat it, you know? I even tried to go in. I don't think there's still any. Maybe there's something like 49th and Penn underneath Bank of Indianapolis in the basement. The bank was like, yeah, sure, come on in. Oh, you're a brewery? Nah, beat it. Like literally, like.
What year was this?
This was 2013.
Okay.
So there's still like a lot of open spaces. You know what I mean? Like the economy hadn't like totally kind of come back. Like, but people even then. It's part of my passion for like the franchise world is just because as hard as it was in a startup then, like even now it's even worse. Like because, you know, a lot of people I think don't even notice until you say, okay, go down the road and count franchise versus startup that you see for the next 2 miles. And it's going to be 95% franchise locations because the landlords feel better about the fact that they have a model that's proven. They have a support staff that's subsidized over the course of a whole group. You know what I mean? They have a marketing team in place. They have, I mean, all the graphic design, all the things that you overlook, like, oh, I got to pay $3,000 for a graphic designer. Oh, you know, all the mistakes. And again, Jerry, I know you're a small business owner, but you pay for an experience. You're either going to pay for someone to tell you what to do, or you're going to take your lumps with an experience along the way. It's going to happen either way.
Dave Ramsey calls that the stupid tax.
Oh, is it? Yeah. It makes sense because I've paid plenty of it.
Well, it's crazy hearing you say that because I remember, June, July 2011, like Peter and I had to pitch our broker to like work
with us.
Who's
working for you.
Yeah, working for us to potentially back us going to different potential landlords and property owners to get us in there. And then when we finally found a space, we had to then like put together a pitch deck for the owner of that building to explain what CrossFit was back in 2011 and why we were going to be different and be successful with what we were doing. And now it's like 2019, we're just like, well, you don't know what CrossFit is, or you don't like.
Yeah, in 2011, CrossFit was probably.
It was, especially here in Indiana. Like there's nothing downtown. Nothing. Yeah.
So,
but it's kind of crazy hearing you say that.
And even with your model, in general, I would have to guess it's not that intrusive in terms of improvements, right?
We don't touch anything.
Whereas
it's like this empty, empty shell is all we need.
And I got to convince a landlord to come in and run 40 feet of trench drain, like saw cut the floor and run, like all kinds of extra. And this is just for a nano brewery, and that's part of the difficulty of the brewery model is like there's a lot of spaces that are ready to be CrossFit. There's spaces that are ready to be restaurants because they're ex-restaurants. But there's no spaces, zero, that are ready to be breweries. There's zero. And a lot of people, like when they see a brewery go down, they're like, oh, a brewery went down. But like the national statistics of startup closing, part of the reason the brewery model has blown up is because they don't close that often. When they do, they're newsworthy because the average startup in the meantime, 30 restaurants closed in the time it takes. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that was the end. The end of it was that bar, bookstore was cool, wanted to do that, but bar, bookstore, brewery was a destination, and it allowed me to go into literally how I found this, like where we are right now, the mothership's original location.
What's the address?
It is 9402 Uptown Drive, Suite 1400. It's right next to Home Depot off 96th Street, which is an easy landmark for everybody. But like the only reason we found this building was because my contractor was at Home Depot. And like we can hit Home Depot with a rock from the front door. That's how close it is. And he was like, hey, there's a building next to it. Because literally no one even wanted to even like take my call. Like the locations we are now, like Broad Ripple, Mass Ave, they wouldn't even call me back, let alone like open the door to let me see spaces. So we ended up here, and Debbie Mann, shout out Mann Properties, gave me a shot, But even then they saw me come in and, like I'm 38 now, but like I look like this little shrimp kid, and there's like, you're going to do what? Tear my building apart? Like good luck, I guess. This building was maybe 30% occupied when I went in. So I think that I had that at my advantage. But it's all full out now. But so the brewery allowed us to appeal to a destination crowd immediately because people found us right away. And that kind of allowed us, because the overhead here was low, it allowed us room for error for our crowd to naturally build, which was really important overall to kind of the mystery, the in the know feeling, which is intentional. Like sometimes it was a pain point early on where people are like, people don't know what to do. They don't know what to, like, good. Do you understand? You know what happens when people don't know what to do? They ask.
They figure it out.
What is this? What's happening? Who are you? No one, does anyone ask those things at a restaurant? They go to a table for two. They sit down, you never talk to them again.
Yeah.
So the whole idea is trying to, how do I engineer, from my view, who can't be here every day, anything that I can do to get people engaged, including my staff. Another example of this was, and I'll stop being so long-winded for a minute here, but we were opening a new store at one point, and the manager that we had hired came from the traditional restaurant industry and was like, ooh, we got to do something about this here because people are going to stand here and look at the mugs and they're going to get in our way. And I said, good. I want them to get in your way. You know why? Because then you have to talk to them. And you got to say, hey, what's up on your left? Hey, coming through. Oh, don't sweat it. Even just that, even the force.
Oh, yeah. So you're acknowledging somebody, right?
100%.
That they're there.
100%.
And I think that we covered a ton of ground there, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot of foreshadowing into
that's my brain.
kind of some things.
Woke in my brain.
And I don't even think that we hit on how it originally started, which is okay, because I think that information is probably out there.
Well, that's how it came about. Like I wanted to open a bookstore, and then bookstore bar, and then bookstore brewery eventually. So it organically kind of worked itself up to that. But overall, the biggest thing for me was, sure, I'd love to open a bookstore. Sure, I'd love to open a bar. Sure, I'd love to open a brewery. But again, the minor league baseball training in me, the reason that it's a great model is because if the team sucks, you're still in business. Does anyone at this table know what the Indians' record was last year? I would put 100. Yeah, exactly. I put $100 on the tables, and there's no way.
I was going to look it up earlier.
Nobody. You know who knows? Nobody.
Not even the players.
Not even the staff. Like nobody knows what. And so the point is that I view it, you have this table with a bunch of legs underneath, baseball leaves. You still have promotions and marketing and tickets and concessions and concerts and events and whatever you do, you have an event venue. And so the whole idea of that is the safety and the fact that for us, like if the brew system breaks down, we're still in business. Like there's going to be people that are going to shed a tear because we don't have our own beer on tap for a night or two while we get it fixed. But at the end of the day, like, I don't care if you're Goose Island. If you walk in and they don't have beer, you leave.
Yeah.
So that scares the shit out of me. The idea that I'm so fixed on one commodity that if it's not there, I don't have a business. And that's just not something that I am ever willing to do.
Well, and with that, like what's going on right now?
Trivia.
Perfect example. Like people are coming not necessarily for the beer, but coming for an experience, right? They're coming for something else. And
there's a lot of I can't remember who was talking. I was talking to somebody today about this exact same thing. It was like, well, yeah, the beer. I'm like, look, I don't think you get it. Like we have cider drinkers that don't. We have people that come for games on Dungeons and Dragons who don't even drink beer. Like we have so one of my favorite moments ever with Books and Brews. Like we have a guy who comes for open mic. Open mic's a really successful night for us, especially at the mothership. I mean, it always varies. Every market's different, which is great. I love that even more, that we can customize kind of our model around what's really cool in different markets. But for us here at the original location, open mic is really great, and we get a lot of musicians, and we have we have our mug club, and so our mug club members have a discount mug fill on the same night as open mic. And it almost really wasn't intentional, but how it turned out over time was that you have regulars who are mug club members and then open mic people coming for open mic. And a lot of times there's at least one person every night that maybe has never even played in front of people before. And you have all these regulars who now are so dedicated to the space of Books and Brews and the community involvement that they're so supportive, and they, oh my God, clap and support and cheer. And the feeling of people, even seasoned musicians, because most open mics are kind of like musicians waiting for musicians to play so they can play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas there's actually people here that come to listen and then engage, and they get off the stage and like, oh, tell me about that. Like, holy shit, there's a whole nother level. So the point of it is we had a regular, a mug club member who is a dude who basically just has like this sick $5,000 guitar. All he does is shred at home, never played in front of anybody, brings it in, starts like just ripping blues, like no even microphone for 5 minutes, gets off the stage one night, everyone's cheering, and like the look on his face is priceless. And he comes to me and he says, Jason, wow, this is great. I know you do a lot of stuff here, but this has really got to be your breadwinner, right? And I thought, this dude doesn't even know that 24 hours ago, there was 50 Dungeons and Dragons players in here. And they have no idea that music is even happening. And neither of them know that I have a new beer coming on Friday. And still none of them know that we have trivia, friends trivia, on Wednesday that we're going to have, like we did office trivia here, and there's like a 2-hour line out the door like it was a New York nightclub.
Who's your favorite friend?
I don't even know what that show is.
Ross is the
that's
obvious
the answer. That's the answer.
I want to get to the point to where you made the pivot and the decision to go, this is one location. Yes, I can open up another tap room, another space.
Yeah.
But I want to make it a franchise, right? Because
right.
That's what I think is unique. That's what I've not seen before.
Well, it's one of those things where, so our mission statement, like I said, is a place for people without a place. And the reason I believe in a really strong mission statement is because business is really fucking hard. Like really, it is all Madden advanced mode. I can cuss, right?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
I was going to say, okay. Sorry.
Of course you can.
Damn it. So like this is advanced mode. Like it weeds you out really quickly. Like if you don't have the stomach for it, there are highs and lows. I have them cashing a check and there's 6 months later, I'm not. Like that happens. So you got to be able to have this. It's, like if you watch Rounders with Matt Damon, one of my favorite movies.
Oh yeah, hands down.
Like the monologue in the beginning that says like seasoned vets won't even play Texas Hold'em because they can't handle the swings. Like that is business. Like if you can't handle the swings, like don't do it. And so I started on a topic, and my Adderall is clearly worn off by now. So the original question was, remind me.
Yes. Okay. So you started off with just one. When did you make the decision to franchise the business?
I appreciate that. So having the mission statement, the really strong mission statement, and I
where
would
we
like to talk about that too, because I'm big on mental health.
And then we went into rounders.
Yes, is that when you have a mission statement, it gets you through those hard times. It gets you through those swings, because when you don't know what to do, you just go to your mission statement and let that decide for you. So, for example, we got to a point where we were making enough beer, even on the small scale, in a very inexpensive space, where we were starting to get some attention from landlords going, hey, I got a space in Zionsville you should check out. I'm like, wow, really? Like, no one will even call me back in Zionsville, 2 years ago, let alone. So yeah, I'll check it out. Like, whatever, this just should be fun, And so you go there, and all of a sudden they're offering you money, and they're going to build it out for you. And you're like, oh shit, this is kind of cool. So I did the math, and I'm like, all right, we can brew enough beer for 2 locations. Let's roll the dice. So I did it, and it went great. And so then we came to a crossroads of, okay, now we're running out of beer. So what do? Do we open a production facility, or do we look for a licensing partner that can brew our beer for us? And then we go the franchise or just like extra corporate store route, like more. And then it's like, what do? Well, what does the mission statement say? A place for people without a place. It doesn't say a brewery. It doesn't say beer. It says a place. We're about making places. So it made the decision really easy. We create more places. So that's what we did. We went around. And then on top of that, you get to the point where people are starting to come to you about, and I'm a big believer in kind of like letting the market dictate your moves. So it was less, the beginning of it was less about me deciding to franchise and more about I was getting pinged about it. People will come into town, first-time visitors, love your concept, haven't seen it a lot of places, if anywhere. Have you ever thought about franchising? And I started to hear that over and over again. Oh, shit, maybe I should listen, You mentioned shut up and take my money as like one of my favorite things to think about all the time is because as a business owner, it feels like that a lot. Like why won't people literally just take my money? Like I'm trying, like that happens a lot. So I was like, well, I'm gonna listen to my own advice. And anytime someone wants to give me money, I'm going to figure out how to make it happen. So like, for example, one of the very first beer festivals I went to, I have no reason, let alone ambition, to be bottling anything. And someone from a liquor store comes up and says, this is great. Can we get some bottles? I go, yes, I will get those to you. When do you need them? I make it happen. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you just got to reverse engineer that shit. So we got to that point, and again, you look at the mission statement, and our very first franchisee is Alex and Carmel, and shout out Alex, killing it. And Alex came to me, and you start to listen to these stories, because stories, again, I think if there's business people listening to this, like, look, whatever you're doing, you got to drop it and you got to tell stories. Like if no one knows about why or what you're doing, like
amen to that.
I agree.
They're not going to give a shit. Yep. You know what I mean? Like there's too many other things out there that are less expensive and have more capital than you. Like you have to let them know your story. They have to know you. They're not giving money to Books and Brews. They're giving money to Scotty, who's trying to pay for a new alternator because he can't get his car started to get to work. Like that makes a difference. Like giving money for a grilled cheese doesn't. It just doesn't. It might taste good for a minute, but you forget about it. The grilled cheese tastes a lot better when you're like, I tipped $5 to a guy who's going to go take it. And like, the story.
Yeah.
So when you listen to people like Alex was a CPA, and he came out of school and he worked for a couple of years, and he stared at the inside of a cubicle going, shit, this is my life, forever. And I'm putting some words in his mouth, but like, this is based,
I'm sure he said it before.
But, so a place for people without a place. It's not just, and I think some people think about that as just like guests. It's not. It's also franchisees. And I thought, oh shit, I have a real opportunity here. Like there are people out there on a heart level. There are people out there that, lots of them, that hate what they do, even if they make money. And then if you can provide for them a place where they can make a living, it might not be as a lawyer or a CPA or whatever, but they can make a living, and they can be excited to get out of bed every morning, and they can be satisfied when they go to sleep every night, then how stupid am I to not push to provide that? Number one. Number two, when it comes to the guests, the idea that there's somebody out there right now. I like to make up like people as hard part. Like there's someone in like Topeka, Kansas. There's some kid in his room right now listening to music that thinks there's nowhere on earth that anyone is ever going to understand them. There's nowhere on earth they're ever going to go where they're accepted. And then how selfish am I with a concept that I don't work towards that, that every time, so we build all the furniture ourselves. That's a whole other story. Like, for example, this is the shit I think about. Like when I'm building a table, when I'm cutting a board, like motivation matters. This is what gets you through. I haven't had a check in 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. I'm burning through savings. I'm having issues. That's what gets, is that when I'm cutting this board, it's not for a table, I'm an emotional guy. I get choked up a lot, but like it's for the person who's going to sit at it that feels for the first time, you know what I'm saying? Like they matter.
That's fucking awesome. To see that passion and like exactly what you're talking about. When I was working at Mercedes, they made like we would go to these like these big yearly gatherings, right? And we had this video and it was like about hospitality. And I swear I still remember this video because it got me, dude. It choked me up. It was a story about Starbucks and like a hotel chain, but it was all about hospitality and like what separates these businesses and these companies from everybody else who's doing the exact same thing, right? And these people had met at this Starbucks, right? And they were tearing down the Starbucks, and they had met there. They had gotten married, and that was the Starbucks that they always went to. And eventually, this woman's husband died, and they're tearing down this Starbucks, and she went in there and she's like, you cannot tear this place down. Like, this is where I met my husband. Like, we were sitting at that table. Yeah. Like, you cannot do this. And they like gave her the table, like and it was just an amazing story about hospitality and like what you do. And when you're thinking about not just business, but the people that are supporting that business and why that's important. Right.
100%.
Like same thing.
Well, I mean, you talked about creating space, right? Like this is what it's all about, is experience. And you've had people get married here. I met my wife at the CrossFit gym that I own. Yeah. And like, without that, would I have ever met her?
Right.
Like, and how many times, like you said, you know a lot that's happening here at the mothership at the headquarters, but how many locations you guys have now?
We have, well, unfortunately we just lost one, but we have 8, and then number 9 is opening in Noblesville. That's unannounced yet. That's the new.
Secret.
Yeah, it's a secret. Breaking news. Yeah. Hamilton Town Center is coming soon.
Very cool.
But yeah, and then we have so those are current, and yeah, we've been pinged from all over the country. Not even had a chance to even like chase the leads yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, the point is like a lot.
For sure. I mean, there's stories happening each one of these locations that you're not even aware of.
Right, totally.
People are changing lives.
Yeah.
And talking about stories, you were recently featured in, was it New York Times?
The New York Times.
How the hell did that happen?
Dude,
like talk about that.
Good story.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Like I literally almost didn't even take the call because so if you own a business or even if you're like a manager, you know that you have hardened your gatekeeper phone answerer person. It's like there's no fucking way you're gonna hand me a phone. Like it's not happening.
I'm on the other end of that phone
really?
every single day.
Anybody who knows me has my number. Anybody that I want to talk to can call me on my cell phone. So therefore anybody, and the tricks that get pulled to get are hysterical. Like, oh yeah, I was talking to Jason. We just got disconnected. Like literally, like that's like the call. What the cold call is. Be like, oh yeah, so you just got disconnected. And I'm like, we did? Okay, no, this is a trick. So, anyway, sorry, I lost track of the question again.
New York Times. You almost didn't take the call. Yes.
So Brian, our head brewer, got it, and he calls me. He's like, yeah, New York Times.
Time Cop? Is that no? That's
yeah,
not
Time Cop. Yeah, Time Cop. Prophecy.
It's a total recall.
It is. It's good.
Get it?
I like it. So, Time Cop, yeah, he's like, hey, the New York Times called. I'm like, Brian, you know better. This is bullshit. Like, there's no fucking way the New York Times called. Quit bothering me with this stuff. And he's like, oh, it seemed kind of legit. I'm really sorry, but
that sounds like
he's a good buddy of mine. I love shout out Brian. And so he's like, she gave me her name. She said, like, look, if you don't believe me, do that, blah, blah, blah. She said she emailed you a couple times. Like, well, now I know it's bullshit because I haven't received any emails. Well, so we had a manager leave at one point, and her name was still attached to the email inquiries on the website. So all of these emails that she had been sending have been going into like the void of the website.
No.
So I logged into the website and looked it up, and I was like, "Ooh, guilt." And so I still Googled her because still kind of felt one of the dirty tricks that any kind of publication wants to play now is they call you and go, "We'd love to feature you," and that means like. The feature is actually like an advertisement, but that's how they get past the gatekeeper is that they can use a word like feature and it feels like article, but it's actually a paid advertisement. Yeah. So I was still skeptical going in, but like now I kind of feel like I have to. Now I feel like a jerk, you know? So it was JD, and her name's escaping me right now. She does the bookstore beat essentially, like kind of biopics, so to speak, on bookstores for the New York Times. She also does tech articles, and then she also does a podcast as well. But she's from Indiana originally. She went to school at IU, studied. I don't know if the words typecasting, is that a thing? Like, you know, setting the pages, and went off to work at Rolling Stone and worked her way up to journalist. And
wow.
So it was great. Like, she flew in and brought her mom out, and mom like browsed the books while we were chatting, and I was very surreal, and she was super awesome. One of those things where you just want to be like, "We just come back and be my friend," you know what I mean? And so we chatted for a while, and it was about a month went by, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna send a photographer out," and they subcontracted a local photographer to come out and take pictures. And I told them all our musician friends for open mic, and they packed the place for it. And then they took the pictures, and it was like, boom, the article was out right away. But it was all very surreal. Like, part of her thing was she wanted to look at like the bookstore culture more in flyover states, because for her, it sounds like a lot of the coverage gets like coastal. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and that's where like a lot of cool hip things going on. But like, for her, I think part of her heart for Indiana, or just the Midwest in general, is like there are cool hip things going on around here. So there was not necessarily an in, because I didn't know her at all, but I think that's kind of probably what led her in our direction at some point to find us. And so,
damn Hoosier hospitality, man.
Right?
Just be proud that you were there.
Yeah.
Don't rationalize why she reached out to you. Jeez.
I appreciate it.
Well, I mean, maybe I didn't have it in, but, you know, we're both from Indiana, so basically we know each other. No, screw that. You freaking deserve it, dude. That's awesome.
Thank you. Well, yeah, it was great. It was a great article. And
what, as a result of that, like, more people contacting you or anything like that?
Yeah, we've had a lot of pings for franchising. I mean, like literally, I haven't even like begun to start kind of like weeding through it, you know. But
and you guys, you're just regionally right now, or just even Indianapolis?
Yeah,
right now?
So Muncie, I guess, is the farthest we go out. You know, it's one of those things where like, I think breaking that seal of sort of like the greater Indianapolis area is kind of pushing. So we did sign a franchisee in Denver. We signed a franchisee in Oxford, Ohio. And this is one thing they also, you know, again, a stupid tax, right? Like, one thing they don't tell you about franchising is there's a large percentage of franchises that pay a franchise fee, and then still don't even get open. Because in the time it takes, you can imagine people's lives change. They get married. They move away. They change their mind, you know? So, like, that was also a learning curve for me, that like our Denver franchisee, like things changed. Like, they actually signed a lease for a space, and they got into a legal issue. The landlord listed this space for the building for sale as soon as they signed the lease. Like, it felt very like bait and like, yeah, we'll sign a lease and we'll build it out for you. Then boom, building's for sale. Like, very much felt like a tactic just to sell the building instead of like no intention to actually ever build the space out. So that one's been caught up for a long time. And in the process of that, my franchisee was, when rightfully so, was like, yeah, I'm done. Like, I'm going to settle this obviously, but I'm not, you know? And so, Oxford's a different story. That's a town where Miami University is, where it's just not a lot of spaces to rent. It's just not a lot. You got to just kind of wait. It's got to wait around, you know? And so that was a lump I took in the last year, in terms of you build the staff, like you're really growing, and you're like, oh shit, places aren't getting open as fast as you expect, you know, because you got to open fast in your stores doesn't mean somebody else will. And so I had to scale back this past year and kind of like rebuild again. So anyway, it's one of those things, like ebbs and flows of business.
So how many of you, like, do you own or have you opened?
Yeah, so I opened 4.
Okay.
So I opened the mothership, I opened Zionsville, and then I started franchising right at about the same time. I had someone come to me and say, I had a good mentor throughout this process who had worked on like a higher level with like national chains like Panera and Cracker Barrel and, you know, different things like that in different roles. And he was like, you know, I think for the sake of your franchisees, it'd probably be good for you to go out and prove the model a couple more times. And, you know, even if you take your lumps and, you know, like find out markets are different. So that's when I was like, yeah, I think you're right. So I raised a little extra money on a website called Local Steak, which I would recommend. It's great. Scotty's raised a bunch of money on Local Steak. Cardinal, no, pass. Cardinal,
which one?
Spirits?
Scotty's. Oh yeah. There's some. Yeah.
Okay, there's some blood. Okay, so
well, no, it's just a bunch of shit in the papers.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. So, well, this was way before. This was when Scott Wise was still involved. But like, Cardinal Spirits raised a bunch of money on Local Steak. Anyway, so it's a local. It is actually a local company. It's called Local Steak. So it's like Kickstarter, except kind of like for a revenue share loan. So people kick in more money, but for us, we raised like 77 grand, and the payback was like 1.25. So basically, what's good about it is you only pay back like a percentage of your revenue. So if business sucks, you know, you don't have this unmanageable like bank loan, you know, but business is good, you're paying back more. So it averages out over time. And it came from, you know, I got 10 people investing that all came from like literally like our Mug Club membership base, which was amazing. And so it was a good website for us. We opened Brownsburg with it. We opened Muncie. Like obviously that didn't cover everything, but we opened Muncie, which was again, like took my lumps in Muncie. Here's something that's funny. And just because a business is operating in a space doesn't 100% mean like they should. Like I get this a lot of times. People come to me and be like, yo, the bars are always doing X, Y, Z. I'm like, just because they're doing it doesn't make it legal. Like literally, do you understand? People do illegal things and don't get caught. Like that's the thing that happens. So you can't justify it with someone else is doing it. When the police come in, you can't be like, Applebee's said that they could give away beer for free. Like it's not going to save you from getting the cuffs on you and like, you know, getting fined for that shit. So, anyway, the point of the story was like, there was a brewery in Muncie, for example, where we moved in, and when we moved in there and signed the lease, the building department came in and said, you can't have the public in here. And I said, what are you talking about? It's been operating as a brewery for the last 2 years. And they're like, well, that's news to us, and you can't have the public in here.
Whoa.
And so that cost me a little bit of money in terms of upgrades because there's a lot of things got involved. So
wow.
The point is ask more questions, everyone at home.
Always
just
be
because
asking.
things are doing the way it doesn't mean this. So anyway, proved the model a couple more times myself. So I own 4, and then then started franchising out, and then that came with its own problems, you know. And it's one of the things that, like recently I'm a big champion of is, you know, quicker reactions. Like you have to be able to see what's happening. And I think a lot of people get into a zone of, whether it's a franchisee or whether it's my own crew, they get into a zone of, oh, let's just wait and see. Hopefully it'll turn out. Like, no, you have to make decisions based on what's happening now. Like it might turn out XYZ, whatever you're looking at, but the people, you have to react faster. You just have to. You got to pivot faster. You got to make decisions faster. You have to be people of action instead of inaction. At the end of the day, you know, you have to make the decision instead of just like hoping things will either turn around or change, or this beer's not selling, let's just keep it on for 4 more months and then decide to take it off. Like, no, you know. So there was some growing pains with our franchise model. One of the biggest ones was not requiring our franchisees to be involved. Like we sold the model with the idea that it's easy, it's simple. You know, we do sandwiches and we do beer, and there's not a ton of learning curve, and it's true. But just because it's not complex work doesn't mean it's not work. Yeah. And when it comes to a community space, like there needs to be a community leader. There needs to be a face of the business. And if you're not in the space, if you're not meeting people, even if you're not working behind the bar, even if you're not working in the kitchen, which you should as a business owner, you're talking about scrubbing toilets, right? Like, yeah, I mean, like you should, like people should see you do that stuff. I mean, it helps the staff. But even if you're not, at least you're there, like meeting people. At least you're, you know, people know you. So that way you're not susceptible to the long-term bartender everyone loves leaving, because you're still a constant face. If you're not a constant face and that person leaves, when they come in, the place is different. It's just different.
I agree.
I mean, I cleaned a nasty.
That's not what I'm saying.
I cleaned out a gnarly church.
I think you completely missed the point.
So.
I want to hit on one more thing. We're going to wrap this thing up here. But I want to hit on even the more recent news, even past this New York Times article.
Yeah.
Is the whole thing that's going on with Flat 12.
Yeah.
So if you can, let's hit on that, and then we're going to get into the drinks and the rapid fire.
Sweet. So Flat 12 came about. So that was when I talk about my crossroads. That's what I did. I licensed my beer to Flat 12. Flat 12 was in the right spot at the right time because they had just gone through an ownership change of themselves and had done kind of a restructuring. So they had, it's one of those things where it's like, we need beer. They have empty tanks. It was perfect. We did a licensing agreement, like we get a small cut. My franchisees never have to worry about having empty draft lines because we're just this tiny nano brewery. And then they make money because they have empty tanks. They sell it. We don't have to worry about the cash flow because we're not paying for the labor, the raw materials, like the net 30 terms, like all the things that kind of bury businesses as you scale. And it was perfect. We grew franchisees, we grew our business, and then you get to kind of this critical mass where you do the math and you're like, okay, we've had this relationship for 2 years. It's an easy transition. It's not like us going in and buying like AB InBev buys 10 barrel. They don't even know these suits that are walking through the door. Like, I've known the dudes in the back. Like, they came here when I was still, a one-man show back in the day. Like, I was making sandwiches, pouring beer, and brewing at the same time in rubber boots. Jeez. And I ruined so many batches that way because I would get busy and I didn't have time to, 3-hour 3-hour mashes. Or because I was in a rush, one time I opened the wrong valve at one point and ended up dumping half of the runnings, the first runnings down the drain. And so eventually we grew out of that, obviously. But I've known those guys since then. That's the point. They'd come in and chat with me and got to know them. And then we became, with the franchise, with the licensing agreement, we obviously became a lot closer because then they got all the recipes and we talking about the scalability. So the transition there was really, really easy and smooth. It's just business as usual, whereas probably a lot of business purchases come in and it's we're going to change things and things are going to be different. But not only that, but I think even for the front of the house, things are always going to be weird, when new people are coming in.
Well, there's uncertainty that's going to go in there.
And just change. People just hate change. I always say, it's not even the thing that people don't like. It's just the idea of change that people can't get over. And so that's okay. And I've experienced that a lot. So I totally anticipated that. And it's certainly still working itself out in the front, in the front of the house. But back of the house, super awesome. When I say back of the house, that's more like kitchen terms for restaurants, but brewery side, guys are awesome. Known them for a long time. Super cool dudes. The staff I inherited there, honest with you, 5 times better than I even anticipated. You anticipate sometimes going in okay, we have these ideas, we have these thoughts. We're going to go in and we're going to coach up this, that, and this. It's you go in and you're like, wow, you guys are doing good.
Yeah.
Let me maybe give you 1% here or there. Kind of let me give you my flavor. But I mean, the dinner's the same. You know what I mean? And that's the biggest thing. Yeah, that analogies.
You got me.
Yeah. But that's kind of, it's one of those, I tried to preach right away to them was, I don't want you to feel like it's us coming and taking over. It's us going, we now have 9 times the resources that you have. We have more help for you. Your jobs will be easier. Whether it's marketing or whether it's brewing, there's more heads, more hands, more, more time. And now there's more room for advancement as well. And so I think everyone was super pumped to get on board. But the thing I'm most excited about is the fact that I've, gone my whole life living in sports and then channeling my geekdom, so to speak, with books and brews. Well, now this gives me such an amazing opportunity to split myself in half again and exercise all of the kind of the professional athletic side of me. You know what I mean? The competition mode, all the things I deeply believe in mission wise. Because that is honestly one thing I went in, asked him, hey, what's your mission statement? Oh, I don't know. There isn't one. Whereas me, I'm the opposite. I want it to be on the wall. It's on our walls. It's on our menus. It's the first thing we try to point to in training is, here's what we're about. How do you feel about that? And so that's the thing right now I'm trying to bring out organically there. And because what I believe in with the racing theme, and I think racing is much more transcendent than the vehicle you know, like IndyCar. I don't care if it's bicycles. I don't care if it's Mario Kart. I don't care if it's, you know, tortoise in the hare. Like, we're ingrained with the idea that competition and teamwork and adversity like sharpens all of us, and the ability to compose that in a way, and whether it's activities, themes, beer names, again, the whole idea of it's about the expression and not the medium. You know what I mean? And finding ways to, whereas like the musician can only play music, whereas the beauty of like having a business is that I can do it all. Like, I can paint, play music, I can draw, I can do, so like that's how I see, that's the best way to put it probably. We see like the commodities that we sell, whether it's beer, board games, trivia, music, whatever it is, like I can do it all, but it's all towards the same expression, where like a lot of people can't. A lot of people can just paint. A lot of people can
it comes down to experience, right? Like, how are you creating that experience?
100%.
And it can be a myriad things, right?
Yeah.
Like, it can be anything, but it's experience.
Yes.
When it gets down to it.
So anyway, super pumped about being back in sports ball again.
Sports ball. Go sports.
Yes.
But yeah, congratulations. That was huge news when that came through.
Thank you.
If that was not clear, Jason now owns Flat 12.
Yes.
So I don't know if that was clear enough, but it is now.
You put it out there.
Rapid fire.
We got to talk about the beers.
We got to talk about the beers.
Yes.
I had looking at you. What did I have?
I don't even remember. Did you have the sour, or did you have the barrel aged? You had
the hop something.
Oh,
hop.
You had a Secret Treasure of the Hops, which is our choose your own hop adventure. So again, very nerdy. I don't know if so choose your own adventure novels back in the day, and even
Bandersnatch.
And I didn't even like. It's not like I even tried. Like, that was something I would totally do. Like, if I had known there was like a choose your own adventure type of pop culture thing coming out. Like, I didn't even like. I must have been my subconscious.
It's
like,
huge lawsuit right now.
Right. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah, the choose your own adventure is a brand. Right. And they're suing Netflix right now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
That's crazy.
Because they're billing it as choose your own adventure.
Correct, with Bandersnatch.
So
it was in the Hustle the other day.
Wow.
The Hustle newsletter.
I'm gonna have to change the name.
Just one more email I have to like just delete it.
No, the Hustle's great. Anyways.
So I've been having that, and it's friggin' awesome.
Yeah, so delicious. Double IPA is the first one. So one of the things we haven't had a chance to, like, I think as the year goes on, and maybe as subsequent years goes on, we'll have a better chance to like get out in front and market it. But so what we've been trying to do is do literally like kind of choose your own adventure novel online, with have a scenario. People are commenting like on Facebook what they choose. And then so every week we do that and lead them on a path. And then it's like, boom, the next choose your own hop adventure is, this one was Secret Treasure of the Hops. The next one's going to be like Mystery of the Hop People. You know, like there's so there's all different, and they're all different. So there's like we're planning like a double IPA, a white IPA, you know, like a hazy, a juicy, like all the milkshake, all that stuff. And so that'll be like every other month probably as the year goes on. We're trying to tie that into an online kind of.
That's awesome.
As opposed to a poll, we're trying to tie it into more of like a choose your own adventure style way around it. So we're working on it. It's a work in progress, but the beer is terrific.
Pick your own journey.
Yes.
Good. There you go.
Choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
That might actually work.
I like it.
What were you drinking?
I was drinking Nancy. We call it Nancy now because now obviously we're trying to avoid the lawsuits. Send your cease and desist letters to. No. So Nancy Brew and the Hoppy Boys was, you know, like the original name for it. And then so as we started canning and distributing, we try to tone down the references. People, hopefully the references go with it. Like people get it. The whole idea is like you can hint, right? You just can't infringe on a copy. So Nancy is like kind of like the trade name for it as it goes out, with more of a, I would say like clip arty kind of, like you get it. It's a woman. She's got a magnifying glass, but it's not like literally like we're putting Nancy Drew on the cover. So
Carmen Sandiego possibly.
Oh, I love Carmen Sandiego, especially the show.
Yeah. What did you have?
Rockapella.
The Kraken.
The
rum barrel.
Oh, the rum barrel. Yeah.
What's the name of that?
Kanga Kraken.
There you go.
So we did a series that I'm calling Dr. Frankenstein's Monster Reserve. So there's a lot of barrel. Thank you. Very nerdy. I know it's very exciting for me personally, but there's a lot of barrel brokers. Like that's a business now because there's so many barrel aged things happening.
Barrel aged everything.
Everything, right? So
barrel aged soap.
Right. There's like
I don't know. Shit out there.
It's like barrel-aged coffee, you know?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
So there are brokers from Colorado, Kentucky, all over the place. And so as the business has grown beyond bourbon barrels, of course, people want more and weird and different. So they're importing everything from, like we have a cognac barrel age. And some of the stuff is stuff where it's extremely expensive to get. So, and the thought process was, well, how do we benefit a lot of our like real regular base, our Mug Club members, while still being able to experiment with some of the stuff? So we would get kind of these one-off barrels that we would never mass produce, and then we can take beers that we would never mass produce, and then we can age them, see how they turn out, and then we'll basically make at least the bottling of it like extremely exclusive to Mug Club members that want to sign up. So that way, like the only way to get like a bomber of that is to be part of like basically the list that I have. Like the be on the list is free, but we notify them like something's coming out, and you have to reserve it, and you get 7 days to show up and get it. Once it's there, we sell it to the public, and so we'll ship it out to individual stores on the bottle basis. So anyway, yeah, it's a fun series. So we did that one. We did a tequila. We did an Imperial IPA tequila barrel aged beer, which is amazing. The one that's just about to come out is a habanero milk stout aged in a rum barrel or something like that. Like it's crazy. So we're trying to do all these weird one-off stuff. It's kind of like like Dr. Frankenstein is like our experimental sort of lab where we have a little room. And what's even great is like people just love it. Like they can't wait to help it try it.
It's interesting that I gravitated towards that beer because I always like the experimental side of things with beers.
I like this.
Yeah,
that's good.
This hand motion.
We're on video now, man. I gotta show like what's going on.
We're going to transition into Rapid Fire. Rapid Fire is brought to you by our friends over at Naptown Fitness.
Yeah, so
Naptown?
God, what were we talking about earlier? We're talking about
fitness,
being able to tell your story, right?
Yeah,
sure.
I heard you perk up when I said story. Yeah.
Well, I've been nerding
brand
out on
story.
Story Brand.
Story
If you're
Brand.
familiar, Story Brand.
Look
it up. Story Brand. It's a great book, and it's just like it's kind of taking over the marketing world right now.
Oh man, yeah.
But like
I'm on it.
part of it is look at my hands are everywhere right now. Everyone keeps looking at me. So part of it is trying to figure out why are you different? Like how can you give your message concisely? And the idea for us is like it's taken us 8 years to figure out, but every single person who walks into the gym at Naptown Fitness gets a curated experience, and every person goes through a no sweat intro, a no snack intro, a no stretch intro, and then they go through a foundations program from there because our coaches or staff prescribe what they should do based on the programs we offer, and it's worked out really, really well. What are you making fun of me? Because it's not. This isn't slow.
No.
Fabian's cracking up right now, which makes us more natural. By the way,
curated is just like your new hot word,
dude. It's curated.
You love
like
it. So it's just killing me. I love it.
I also don't like sweating or stretching. So sounds like it's the program for me.
Totally, and we'll get you in. But bring in. So now that Fabian rudely interrupted that, which I appreciate.
I love it. I'm on board. I'm ready. I'm
cool.
I'm in it.
Anyways, it's simple for someone to come through, sign up for a no snack, no sweat, or a.
I do like snacking though. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Sorry. Keep going.
No before that.
Okay.
No snack, no sweat, and what's the other one? No stretch intro.
No stretch.
And you bring yourself in and talk to a staff member, and we'll kind of set you up with where you should go and what the prescribed program should be for you. So.
NaptownFitness.com. Go check them out.
Don't worry, Fabian's
I'm a member.
Fabian's getting punched in the face after this. So.
My wife's a member. I'm a member. All of our friends are all there. So they got some good stuff going on. But yeah.
And it's curated.
It's curated, bro.
It's curated.
Curated.
Don't worry, everyone's laughing on the side right now, which is
okay.
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire. Worst beer pun name.
Oh my gosh. Brian, basically every time I try to get Brian to give a name, it literally is just includes brew. So if you look into our Facebook, this isn't rapid fire, I apologize. When you look into our Facebook Messenger, eventually when people get drunk enough at night, it's literally just taking it divulges into celebrity names just with like some version of brew in it, like Bruce Willis. Or Kareem Abdul-Jabbarli wine, or it's like all these, it just like keeps going on and on. Like there's volumes of this kind of crap, but it's equally funny and cringy at the same time, and we're totally doing all of it.
I love it.
Favorite minor league baseball name?
Savannah Bananas.
Of course.
Yes.
Because that has to be a thing.
Yeah. They're already sold out for the season. It's amazing.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, it's a real thing. Yeah, a guy I met through like the baseball business, who he's like still a GM. So Savannah Sandgnats used to be a minor league baseball team. I think maybe like the Mets system in Georgia. They moved out of that stadium, vacant stadium. A summer collegiate team moved in. My buddy, who was like a GM in the Coastal Plains League.
There's a story on this one too, isn't there?
What's that?
I've watched something about this.
So yeah, I mean, everyone hated it. Everyone thought it was like the worst name ever. But also, my buddy,
because the mascot's
Jesse
a banana.
Cole,
yeah.
Jesse Cole is his name. Check him out. He's also like this mini LinkedIn book celebrity speaker talker guy, and his thing is that he dresses in yellow tuxes, like Dumb and Dumber style, and that's it. That's all he wears 100% of the time wherever he goes. And he does the whole on-field shtick, and everyone gave them shit when they opened, and they were like max the credit card out, like sell everything they have to like open the ballpark, and they're like sold out. Like they're like now, like it's January, like their season doesn't start till June. Like you can't get a ticket.
Wow,
so
that's crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, Savannah Bananas, check it out. Shout out Jesse.
What are you currently obsessed with?
Oh man, Gary V. You know Gary Vaynerchuk?
No, please
Familiar?
tell us.
Our good friend Gary V.
Yeah,
Fabian.
I
loves
can't.
him.
I can't get away from it. It's one of those things. Like whenever I go to like whether it's podcasts or videos,
you are Gary V.
it
now
comes
I
back
think
to like it all. It is like I can't. Like all roads lead back to it. You know what I mean? Anytime I go to something and get away from it, no, I got something different for you. Sorry, again the ADD. You catch me this late at night. The Adderall's gone. This is what happens. So.
So this is my question now, right?
Yeah.
Second question. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the traveler's gift, if you want to go out and get it, again, not an overly religious dude. Like there is slightly, like it doesn't like go and, you know, whatever. It doesn't get real. It mentions, I guess, God or whatever. But one of my old baseball coaches, my coach when I was at the Wisconsin Woodchucks, which I named, he's now the pitching coach for the Colorado Rockies. And once in a while, this dude would like just drop into my life and be like, yo, dude, here's a book. Go read it. I'd be like, oh, shit. Okay, good to talk to you, dude. I haven't talked to you in 14 months, but that's all right. And, you know, he is a very religious dude. So, like, you know, but I don't care, you know, but like, I think there's things to be learned all the time, even if you're not a subscriber to the channel, so to speak. So I downloaded it and started listening to it. You got to do it. You got to download it, listen to it. Traveler's Gift, go with an open mind. It's fictional, kind of Christmas story, right? Like Scrooge kind of thing, where someone that has terrible circumstances gets transposed through time from Harry Truman to Anne Frank to you know, the Civil War to whatever else, and very perspective building. It's like there's a subtext to it. It's like the 7 decisions of whatever, and it's
interesting.
And it's not just the circumstantial, because you could talk about these different stories that they go through because they're historical, right? But it is fiction, so he goes through like this fictional. So the fiction of it is so. I mean, I'm talking like in-depthly emotionally written, where it's like. And I'm an emotional guy anyway, so like it's almost like the other day it was going through the Civil War moment. Like I thought I was gonna have to pull off the road. Like I was crying, you know. Like I was just like, this is some wild shit. So yeah, Traveler's Gift, check it out. I don't even know who wrote it. Like I just like Steve Foster, my boy. Shout out Foss. He told me to download it, so I just did it without a question because he's the best coach I ever had, and I do what he tells me to do. So it was
life coach.
He was fantastic. I'm 3/4 of the way through it, but it's great.
Where do you go to get away from all this?
Books and Brews. I go to Books. I mean, this is where I spend my time. You know, like honestly, it's the reason I built the place. And you know, like I mean, I go to the movies. You know,
By yourself?
Yeah, totally, 100%. I saw that rock climbing movie. What's the name of it?
I want to see that one with
Free Solo.
Yeah.
Saw that by myself. It was Ravs, me, and one other dude in the theater.
Is that out now?
No, it's like I think it was like way gone, but Keystone Art Cinema was right by my house, which is like real cool to live right by there, you know. And
was that during a Heartland Festival?
No, it was just within the last maybe like 3. I think it must have been like kind of like a back in the theater kind of thing, because it's one of those movies where you want to see it in the big screen. And it is like I was texting my wife, told me like you got to go see it. I'm like, all right, I'm by myself tonight, but I'm gonna go see it. And I was texting her like, you know, ironically, like, you know, fuck you, I can't believe you made me do this. Like, I'm going to, like, barf, you know what I mean? Because it's, like, it's so intense.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. I've been wanting to watch that. I watched Meru, and that was really good.
What was that?
It's same director.
Yeah,
but it was about a guy who was climbing up like ice mountains.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So look it up. That's on Netflix. At least it was on Netflix.
Yeah.
Last question here before we wrap it all up. Who would you recommend as a future guest for the show?
Oh, future guest for the show. Man, that's a good question.
Same question 98 episodes in a row.
Yeah.
I would recommend. Have you guys had Circle City Kombucha on?
Yep.
Damn it. Man, I really thought I was gonna get that one in. That was the first. That was literally my first thought because I love them so much.
They're good people.
Hi Matt. Hi Skylar.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt and Skylar, awesome. Kamal.
Oh, yeah.
He used to work for me. Now works
Kamal.
for them. Yeah.
Hi Stark.
Carly.
Gosh,
Carly.
man, I don't like the fact that I'm gonna kick myself. I couldn't come up with a quick answer on this. I don't know. I have a lot of awesome people. I'll tell you who. Molly, who works for Junior Achievement of America. I want to say Junior. So she went to work. It's I think it's a really great. If I'm getting that name wrong of the organization she went to, it's a nonprofit that basically is teaching life skills, to kids, which I'm very passionate about. Again, and this is a little bit of subjectivity to me because my parents didn't go to college. I was indoctrinated with sort of like distrust of the school system, but the idea that there's no life skills being taught, like nobody knows what a mortgage is or a car loan or interest rates.
No, you're 100%.
Or you come out knowing
financial
We're
literacy.
going to have to press pause and start the new next episode.
Right. So anyway, that's
topic.
why I was really pumped. She, I'm sad she left the company, but I think that what she's doing is awesome. I would definitely recommend her.
Last name?
Molly Grooms. Shout out Molly.
Molly Grooms. Dope. Jason, where can people follow you? Where can people find out more about Books and Brews, either as a consumer or a potential franchisee? Where can people reach you?
Yeah, so booksandbrews.com is with the letter N, so books, letter N, brews.com. And pretty much anywhere. We pretty much try to put ourselves out there as much as possible on everything. I'm on everything from, you can get me on Snapchat, you can get me on Instagram, you can
LinkedIn.
Get me LinkedIn. I try to push as much out there personality wise, less business wise as possible. So
what's your MySpace name?
Oh man, MySpace. Yeah, he got me there. That is the one that I've let that account go.
And so 2 last things, locations where people can find Books and Brews, where are those at? And then give a shout out to Nano Brew, man, the podcast. Where can people listen to that?
Right on. Yeah, shout out to all my boys in Nano Brew. So Time Cop, OB, I'm trying to remember the 5-Foot Assassin, the Foz, all the people that are on Nano Brew right now. We do this silly stuff every Thursday. It's literally just like it's a morale booster. It's like, it literally is like our church. Like I don't give a shit like how stressed out we are. From 3 to 5 every Thursday, we're going to record. We're going to cut it loose. We're going to have a couple beers, and everyone is mandated to forget about all the shit they're worried about. So we do that more for us than people. And then if people listen, cool, but yeah, check out Nano Brew. You can search for Nano Brew, the podcast. We're trying to put it out there a little bit more just because I feel like we can add value. But at the end of the day, we think it's really fun and we hope people like it too. But yeah, the mothership is here. Like you can call it Fishers. We're technically Indianapolis. And then basically all the way around the city, you can hit us in the mainstays from Carmel, Zionsville, Brownsburg. We're on Broad Ripple. We're on Mass Ave. Flat 12 is also downtown. And South Indy, which is right across the street from University of Indianapolis. We're in Muncie, hopefully coming soon in Oxford, coming soon in Noblesville, the Hamilton Town Center. And then hopefully everywhere else from South Bend, Lafayette. We'll see.
Very cool.
Keep going.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us here. Thank you for being on the show. Couple pieces of advice. People, if you want to get through to Jason, just pretend like you're a journalist from the New York Times. It works. Apparently works.
It's a good idea. Just email me. It's just Jason. It's just easier for me. Just Jason at booksandbrews.com.
But he doesn't check his email because he gets so many emails. So just say you're from the New York Times. And just going to give a shout out to old stuff. I'm just going to say doilies. That's some old stuff, right?
Old stuff? Yeah. If I was any happier, I'd be twins.
Cool.
That's the old thing that I like to.
Inside jokes for everyone who listens to Nano Brew, the podcast. Thank you so much, man. Drink culture, know your city. We're out.
Shout out.